Today is January 25th, 2024. This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting from Montreal, Canada. I'm joined today by Palestinian-Canadian artist Rehab Nazzal, who is currently situated in Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. Thank you very much for joining me again, Rehab.
Thank you for having me again.
So this is the third time you and I will have spoken on the record since October 7th of last year. And I would like to begin by just asking you to sort of update our listeners about the conditions where you are and how, if at all, they have evolved since we last spoke, which I think was about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I believe I mentioned in our last conversation that because the eyes and the attention all on Gaza, the Israeli occupation forces are increasing their vicious attacks on the Palestinians in the West Bank in the form of raids. It started with night raids, now night and day, and it includes every day many communities from Al-Khalil to Jenin and Tulkarem and Kalkili. Today, actually, they raided Bethlehem, where I am now yet.
And as far as you know, what did they do in Bethlehem when you say they raided Bethlehem?
That's the thing. I wasn't in the site. They attacked the police, the traffic police. They attacked them. So someone with his cell phone, recorded them. They attacked cars passing by. You don't know what they want.
How did they attack them?
Physically, I can send you the recording. It's circulating.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't.
Were they firing? Were they firing upon vehicles? Were they?
With a stone, they broke a glass. You could see, and they fired tear gas on the poor policemen. I mean, just doing nothing. The PA policemen, basically.
And what is? Are you seeing an increase, a material increase during the past several weeks in attacks by settlers themselves?
Here in Bethlehem, it's less, but in other areas, yes. They actually killed a young man, 17 years old, who has an American citizenship in Ramallah area. They attack fields, they attack farmers, they terrorize some villages like Nablus district, the villages of Burin, Hawara. They're now openly walk with their rifles. Yes, it increased, of course, and that's as a result of the cabinet, the ministers, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, encouraging this attitude, I would say, and which is leading to these attacks. There is 19 Palestinian communities displaced since October to this day. I was saying how it differs from since last we talked, you and I. And I'm writing a photo essay about targeting cultural sites, targeting photographs, monuments of Palestinian martyrs, of Palestinian prisoners. They enter a house and they shoot a photograph. In the street last night, they raided Jenin, and I was last week in Jenin and Tulkarem. They bring those what is it called, bulldozers, D9 bulldozers, armored bulldozers that the Americans used in Iraq to destroy the country. Here, those now, at this moment, they are in Tulkarem refugee camps, these bulldozers. They come along with the armored vehicles and tens of jeeps. So they are focusing on refugee camps. I visited the last 2 weeks. Risky, yes, but I had to. I visited Jenin refugee camp. I spent a few days. I spoke to people there. Believe it or not, when I ask people if this is less horrific than 2002 attack, they're saying it is more. If you remember the massacre of 2002, when they massacred over 700 and destroyed the whole camp, and Israel refused even to allow a UN commission to enter, investigate. So the people are saying it's worse because it's long, it's since October, and there is absolutely no standards or restrictions of attacking the infrastructure. Like those bulldozers enter and they dig the streets, the water pipes. You see them looking, searching for the water pipes and break them, the sewage, the power lines. When you walk in Jenin refugee camp, and if you manage to come, almost every house is riddled with bullets. They are now using, I don't know if this is a new style of weapons or testing it, a type of explosives where they attack a house, a family, they kick them out with their slippers, pajamas sometimes, and they place explosives that burn the entire house. I entered the kitchen where the pots are melted. The fridge is melted. So you enter the house, everything is just black and everything is burned into ashes. I saw this in Tulkarem, and I saw it in Jenin, several houses. So they are assassinating using those drones. And one of the horrific attacks, I was in Jenin about 10 days ago, maybe on the 18th, no, earlier. And there were 4 brothers and their cousins, 2 cousins, sitting in a cafe at 5:30 a.m., going to work. They work in a field, in agriculture. A drone dropped a missile and it just shredded them. 4 brothers. I went to their funeral. I couldn't even open my mouth and speak to the mom because like she was in shock. 4 brothers and the other cousins, 2 brothers. You don't know why they're doing this. Revenge, vengeance, hate. So the refugees in Jenin and in Tulkarem area, there are 2 refugee camps in Tulkarem, the same as Jenin. It's like a site in Gaza if you enter it. These refugees, as you know, they were expelled from Palestine in 1948. And since they've been targeted, and you're talking about Palestinian, the population density, it's like even higher than Gaza. The Tulkarem refugee camp, it's 0.18 kilometer. It has about 30,000 people in it.
Wow.
So you could see the targeting of refugee camps. It's targeting their resilience, their persistence on their right of return. You see the resistance movement there, even among little children who I photograph usually in the street. They're really aware of the whole thing. But to tell you the truth, everyone, including the mother of the 4 young men who were massacred, everyone is saying this is incomparable to Gaza and what's happening to Gaza. The news we watch every day, the news we receive from our friends. I have many friends. The children I made film with, I don't know if they're alive or not. A principal of a school told me she lost half her teachers, half the teachers. She doesn't know how many students she lost. The hospitals, the cultural spaces, universities, school, destruction, wiping out, which makes you think, what is it really about the whole thing? And that's always been my belief. It is the land. They want the land. They don't want anyone on the land. Obliterate everyone and get the land. Like in Jenin refugee camp, the people, they don't sleep in their homes anymore. They go out at night. Some of them return. Others, if they can afford to rent a place in one of the areas around Jenin, they do so because it's not alive. It's not. Terror, humiliation, theft. And this is another fact. Of course, the news won't focus on it. I entered homes, 2 homes, one in Jenin, one in Tulkarem, where the soldiers tried to open a safe. They couldn't. One, they shot it with a rifle and opened it, and they stole the guy's golds of his wife and the savings of his son for a university. In Tulkarem, the elderly has a safe that has everything for his extended family, over $50,000. They stole it, they opened it, and I put the photograph on my Instagram. So it's horrific, really. And aside from talking about the gates now, how they are blocking some villages, main roads are closed. Like I used to go to Jenin through certain roads, and I made my book about these routes I took. Now I am going with public, of course, drivers who also risk their lives. But they maneuver, they take us on a pass-by roads, dirt roads, and I've seen images I've never seen, like in Salfit area, for example, and instead of taking, for example, an hour, it takes 3-4 hours, your trip, and congestions, of course. It's horrific.
Right. I would like to talk to you about sort of the politics, the prevailing politics in the occupied West Bank. There was a very interesting poll that came out several weeks ago, which asked Palestinians living under occupation how they would vote under various scenarios. And one of the scenarios was that they had the option of voting for Marwan Barghouti. And the poll showed that if they were given that option, he would actually prevail over the candidate for Hamas. I believe his name is Sinwar. And that Mahmoud Abbas, in both scenarios, in the scenario where Marwan Barghouti was an option, and the scenario where he was not an option, Mahmoud Abbas finished very, very far below the lead. Clearly, there's very little sympathy for him. I was wondering if you could take a couple of minutes and tell us, and one other thing I should mention is that a former head of the Shin Bet, his name is Ami Ayalon, gave an interview to The Guardian a few days ago, in which he said that the Israeli authorities should release Marwan Barghouti from prison and should allow him to lead the negotiations on behalf of the Palestinian people towards a Palestinian state. So we hear almost nothing in the West about Marwan Barghouti, which seems rather odd if you consider that so many Palestinians would be willing to vote for him if he were, released from imprisonment. Could you tell us something about this man? Who is he? Why does he command so much respect amongst the Palestinians, and why is he in prison?
Well, I guess you could tell immediately that the Palestinians, by intending to vote for him, they're voting for resistance. He is a resistor. He's a fighter. He resisted the occupation. He believed in the path of resistance rather than submission. to the occupation. You would walk the streets, you will see his murals everywhere. So he represents resilience as well for the Palestinians. Although there is a concern among many Palestinians about his state because he's in a solitary confinement. And I think he spent many, many years in confinement. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And yeah, I can confirm how popular he is, and people will vote for him for sure. And it will be, I mean, a fair democratic elections between him and Hamas, because Hamas now, the popularity is skyrocketing in the West Bank.
And is Marwan Barghouti believed to be affiliated with some particular political faction?
He's a Fatah. He is a Fatah leader, well known, and he's a member of their, I think, central committee. A well-known, and many Fatah members feel that he was abandoned by Fatah itself because of the difference in their ideologies, he and the mainstream PA, who really, I mean, formed common interest with the Israeli occupation. For him, it's the people, and always his speeches reflected that before and after. And his writing, which also his wife, often she's a lawyer, she speaks about his condition. Yeah, so as a Fatah vis-a-vis Hamas, and that's what the mainstream media usually focus on, like, but there are many other factions as well in Palestine, including now in Gaza, who's fighting not just Hamas, Fatah fighting, the Democratic Front, the Popular Front, the Jihad movement, everyone among these factions. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure, the Israelis, as I understand it, treat and have treated Marwan Barghouti as a terrorist and who is culpable in the deaths of innocent civilians. What is your view about those allegations?
I just thought of Nelson Mandela. When a colonized or occupied person defend themselves, they're terrorists against terrorism, because colonizing other peoples, torturing other people, stealing their land, that's terrorism. What's happening now is a genocide. And people defending themselves, they're not terrorists, they are freedom fighters. And Marwan Barghouti is a freedom fighter that deserves all the respect that people here have for him.
Switching gears now, do you raise this this issue of genocide? I've stated repeatedly over the past 3 months, and whether genocide is being committed is fundamentally a legal question. It's not a political question; it's a legal question. And I've stated in my capacity as a lawyer that it seems crystal clear to me that what Israel is doing satisfies the definition of genocide under the Genocide Convention of 1948. And tomorrow morning, the International Court of Justice at 7 a.m. New York time is going to release its order. It's going to do this verbally, apparently, in an open hearing, an open sitting of the court. And if I'm correct, that as I predicted, the court will rule in favor of South Africa and find that Israel is, it's plausible, it's at least plausible that Israel is committing genocide. How do you think the people in Palestinians living under occupation, particularly in the West Bank where you are, how will they react to this? Will they view this as a vindication, as a sign of hope? Will they respond to it cynically and say, it's just paper at the end of the day, and no one's going to enforce it? How do you feel that generally the reaction will be to this amongst Palestinians, if the ICGA rules in their favor?
Yeah. Well, the fact that taking Israel to the ICJ for Palestinians was a great thing that happens and unprecedented, really. It's not like the UN or other bodies of the United Nations, the ICJ, where Israel stood to defend itself against the accusations that are ongoing. It's not about the Nakba, by the way. The Nakba, I consider a genocide myself as a Palestinian and many others. Everyone is looking forward to what the ICJ is going to issue. And we don't have much faith, I would say. We don't. We understand.
Just to clarify,
faith.
you don't have faith that the court will rule in your favor, or you don't have faith that the court's ruling will be respected?
No, we don't have faith in international organizations anymore, in international law. We don't. But this was unprecedented because who brought the case? It's South Africa, who lived like we live and presented evidence, I mean, for the blinds even to see. I meant to say, well, first of all, the ICJ cannot enforce anything. And the ICJ is funded, I think, by Western countries. And its ruling has to go to the Security Council. Regardless, really, it would be a great step if they at least rule to stop the killing, stop the murder, because that's what we're waiting for. Or the Gaza friends, my friends send me messages. They want it to stop. So we're hoping that the ICJ will issue a ruling to, cannot force, but ask for ending, stopping these atrocities.
Mhm.
As for genocide, we all understood it's a long process, but still, just accepting the case, Israel now in the corner defending itself against genocide.
Mhm.
And that's achievement for sure. Every Palestinian knows this.
Mhm.
In here, we are waiting minute by minute for the ruling tomorrow.
Inshallah. So the last question I have for you, Rehab, is I really do believe I'd be astonished if the court doesn't rule in favor of South Africa and the Palestinian people, because it just would be mind-boggling to me, given the nature of the evidence presented by the court and the eloquence of the South African submissions, and just the basic law. The law is clear that this is a situation where the court should intervene. But let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that the court succumbs to political pressure and does not rule in favor of the Palestinian people and rejects the application by South Africa. You know, in that scenario, we hear all the time in the mainstream discourse here that Palestinians should use peaceful methods to achieve their outcomes, the desired outcomes, Palestinian state or equality within one state. And if this particular nonviolent method of seeking or obtaining justice for the Palestinian people does not succeed and the ICJ rejects the South African application, how do you respond to the claim that Palestinians should choose peaceful methods of resistance?
It's the death of international law if they don't rule for us. That's it. I mean, it's the last straw, because they've been watching for the past 111 days the massacres of children, over 10,000 children and babies, women and men, over 30,000, now bodies under rubble, destruction of 75% of Gaza, wiping out all these institutions. If they don't rule, it means that's it. I mean, there is a rift in the world. The whites, they have their own, they put these standards for them, white European settlers, and the rest of the world. We're in our own. And this should actually wake us up more in the South, all other countries beyond the minority Europeans and Westerns. No, I even cannot think of it, really. Like, I expect the ruling at least to demand immediate stop to the killing, at least, and start the process of investigating the genocide. But if they don't, it's really, it's political. It's no longer a legal issue, as you said. It's not. Because in order to rule, you have to have the evidence. You need time to collect the evidence. Okay. So no, it would be the end of all these international human rights standards, all these courts, just the UN. It's nonsense.
Well, it's always enlightening and moving to speak to you, Rehab. Thank you so much for taking your time to talk to me again today. And I look forward to our next conversation, and hopefully in much better circumstances.
Hopefully. Thank you.